Visit Uganda, Lambla Uganda ekutusibwako Mailin International Hotel and Casino located at Nakasero, Kampala.
Rose Farm, a world of beautiful dreams.
Victoria University, come prepared to learn, live prepared to succeed.
Maganjo Grain Millers, feeding nations.
Kwita program eno Visit Uganda oba Lambla Uganda nange Charles Kasumba okugikutuusaako tugenda kuba tujja eyo yonna gy'osinziira, tugenda kuba tubaleetera ebifo ebiwummulibwamu ebisanyukirwamu okwetooloola eggwanga. Tuli ku Mailin. Mailin ekutegekedde ekipya naddala gwe ategese okujja okuwummula mweno festive season gye twolekedde oba mu nnaku zino enkulu ezikubye koodi ezikonkona. Jangu olye onywe. Bw'oba olina famire situla mukyalawo situla abaana bo balina ebisulo balina rooms eza famire nga ne bw'oba ne famire y'abantu 3 room ekumala bumazi. Nagambye this is a home away from home. Kakati gwe leeta famire yo ojje muwummulireko wano mulye munywe musibe nga mulyanga munywanga munyumirwa bulamu. Eyo package Mailin egirina naye gwe ojja kuyita ku simu ezo z'olaba eziyita ku lutimbe kuno eza Mailin obakubira obagambe package eri etya eyaffe abasama, package eri etya eya famire bajja kuba bakubuulira. Ate teweerabira gula omufaliso gwa Rose Form ate era genda ku Victoria University ofune koosi gy'ofuŋŋana oyongereko ku bukugu bwo ku bivu bwo ate era olye ku kawunga onywe ku buugi n'eŋŋano ya Maganjo Grain Millers abaliisa amawanga. Nkyali ne Dr. era Professor Ndebesa nagambye Uganda beerina nga bw'atandika okusunsulira Uganda emuli mu kibatu kya ngalo ze. Doctor, we'll come back from that short break. Now, how did these early inhabitants in Uganda manage to influence each other and live in harmony together?
Ugandans have been intermarrying, fusing, and therefore the communities of Uganda are interrelated. By the way, apart from the politics that has divided us, Uganda is one of the countries in Africa, in spite of the civil wars we have had, where there is hardly any communal violence, intercommunal violence. The violence that is in Uganda is between the government and communities, but not community killing another community. In spite of the turbulence we have had, like military coups, Idi Amin, Kabaka, Obote, Rutwa, whatever, there has hardly been intercommunal violence. That is a community attacking another and another, like we hear in Kenya or DRC or in Sudan.
Yes.
That is the uniqueness of Ugandan communities, where there has not been intercommunal violence.
Yes.
It is strange in Uganda.
Okay.
However, that doesn't mean that the Ugandans or the people who came to constitute Uganda in 1894 had not been fighting before. No. Fighting or conflicts, violence at times, is a fact of life.
Yeah.
There used to be intercommunal wars, but they were not so destructive to the level of genocide. They were not so destructive that they would not stop somewhere and negotiate and come to a resolution amicably, diplomatically. So Ugandans have got inbuilt cultural systems that would mitigate extreme violence. And that's the beauty of Uganda. Not that Ugandans were not fighting between communities, they were fighting, but they had anger control mechanisms.
They've got that sense of tolerance.
Well, there is also intolerance, but I think there was mitigation of conflicts and there would be dialogue and cultural ways. One of them I can mention here in the Bantu area was called Omukago, Okuto Omukago system.
Yes.
That is brotherhood, where you would exchange blood with each other using coffee.
Yes.
And you would desist from doing harm and evil to that tribe where your friend comes from. Others would come up with abusing mechanisms. They would abuse each other. Clans which would be nearer each other would kind of have a way of joking relationships in order to contain anger, because conflicts arising out of sharing resources, sharing status, have always been there from time immemorial. The issue, however, is do these communities develop mechanisms of survival that they do not reach breakup points? Ugandans had those methods and mechanisms of anger control and mitigating extreme communal violence. So they were living together, fighting but stopping fighting, and not reaching a extent of mass murders or genocide like we are experiencing today in the neighboring countries. That is before the foreigners came. The foreigners started coming in 1840. I think these were the Arabs who came both from the East African coast and from Khartoum. And these were slave raiders and traders in ivory and whatever. Then in 1860s, we had foreigners coming from Europe as explorers. In 1870s, we had foreigners coming in as missionaries. In 1890s, we had foreigners coming as traders. And 1899, something like that, we had foreigners coming in as colonial masters. And this is how Uganda now started having a mixture of the foreigners and the indigenous Africans. And as we speak today, Uganda has what Professor Mazrui called a triple heritage. We have the heritage of the African communities, we have the heritage of the Europeans and Christianity, and we have the heritage of Islam and the Arab world. So we have got a triple heritage, and Ugandans are such a unique community that you could hardly find these issues we are hearing in the other countries, where you find one religion annihilating another religion, like we are hearing in other countries, genocide of one community against the other, because there is hardly any family or lineage or clan in Uganda which is purely Christian, purely Catholic or Protestant, or purely Muslim. You find in the same family, there are different religious denominations and groups within the same family. My family alone, we have got Roman Catholics, my elder brother and sister are Catholics, and we are Anglicans, the rest of us. So how would we annihilate each other in terms of genocide? That is the beauty of Uganda, with these different heritage and cultures and intermarriages that are a source of strength of the country, which gradually will develop into a workable and effective form of pluralism. Pluralism is accepting differences but tolerating each other and accommodating each other. And I hope and I wish that is where we are heading, if we accept that we are different, but at the same time we are human beings.
Ochalaba Visit Uganda Tourism Show oba Lambla Uganda, nze Charles Kasomba. Professor Ndebesa okuva ku kasozi kabayive Makerere, munnabya omu ku bannabya byafaayo, historian atera political analyst omugundiivu ku batono ennyo bwe tukyasigaza mu ggwanga. Era kyatabagambye Professor Ndebesa ono y'omu ku mitwe emikulu egyali emabega wa ssemateeka wa Uganda. Okitegedde kati munnabyafaayo ye kennyini byafaayo. Bw'oba tumanyi gy'ovudde kiyinza okubeerera ekizibu okumanya w'oli ate ne gy'olaga. Y'ensonga lwaki nga tulambula Uganda twayagala sooke tukuleetere Uganda gy'eva, otegeere Uganda, gwe munnayuganda otegeere nti wava Buvyeri n'ogwa mu Uganda waliwo gye wava okufuuka omutuuze ajjudde owa Uganda. Waliwo bajjajjaffe abalwana ennyo okufuula Uganda kyeri. Kaakati naawe kikkakatako okulwana bwezizingirire nga tofuddeeyo mbeera kijoyitamu ey'ebyenfuna ey'obulamu n'endala naye okusigala nga okulembeza Uganda osoosowaza Uganda okubeera ku mwanjo olina okubeera patriotic eri eggwanga lyo olyagale. Kati nno ffe tetuyise mu byabufuzi, tetuyise sayidi eri, naye tuyise mu byabulambuzi okulambuza Uganda. Professor Ndebesa, according to the statistics, Bantu and Nilotic, they are actually the strongest groups ever migrated in Uganda, if I'm right. What was their influence, and how did they shape the history of Uganda?
We have got civilization that is touched, a heritage that is tangible, that you can touch in terms of buildings, in terms of our tools and all that. But we have also intangible heritage. Intangible heritage is referring to people's worldviews, the thinking, the norms, the cultures that keep people together, that guide people to interact together. So a combination of this and a borrowing from these different communities that interacted for a long time before the British came enriched our cultures and norms and values, so much so that we have not reached breakup of points because of politics to the extent of intercommunal violence. If we take our example of the Luo again, is that before the Luo came about 1500 or 1400, that is about 6,000 years ago, there were organized communities here, initially organized as around a legendary group of people called Batembuzi. Batembuzi in Western Uganda languages means the founders, who are supposed to have been gods. Actually, Ruhanga or the creator, then he had his sons and all that. Then later we had the reign, the rulership of the semi-gods, that is the Bachezi, also who had a very organized empire within this region. And later they were followed by the human beings now. These are the ruling clans of, say, Buganda, the ruling clans of Bunyoro, of Ankole, of Mpororo, of Busoga, but also other areas, even like in the north among the Luo, the Acholi, they are organized communities under chiefdoms called Rugotships. So not every community was unorganized as people want us to believe. So you find people were looking for ways and means of being organized in such a manner that they have law and order. There was law and order in pre-colonial society before the British came, because this law was kept by either the political heads as kings and chiefdoms and chiefs, but also by the clan system. People organized under clans, and below clans there were lineage heads, and below lineage heads there was a family heads and elders. So the society had rules to govern it. Society had laws to govern it, sometimes enforced by coercion, by forcing people to behave, but sometimes enforced by religion, the beliefs that if you broke the rules and norms of society, then the gods would punish you, the ancestors would punish you. So there was also policing from above, that policing of religion that kept law and order, so that society was not in anarchy. But if the divine powers policing failed, then the clans would punish, the elders would punish, the family would punish, the chiefs would punish, and those who had kingdoms, of course, the political authorities would punish and bring the errant people to order. Therefore, pre-colonial Africa was not in anarchy. We were not always fighting and killing each other as Europeans wanted to believe. There was some law and order, and this law and order was enforced by religion as well as by the norms, values, and systems that the British found here. And the beauty of Uganda is that we borrowed from each other. The Baganda borrowed from Banyoro, Banyoro borrowed from Banyankore, Banyankore borrowed from Banyarwanda, and the Tanzanians, and then the Iteso borrowed from the Kalenjin, and finally we had those strong systems that kept society together, that kept communities together. Even when they fought, they had to reach a point and stop fighting and live together, which means that Ugandans and their civilization was very effective in keeping the society together without reaching levels of annihilating each other or genocide like we are experiencing in the current era because of foreign interference as well as the politics and economics that have evolved since the British and these foreigners came to colonize Africa. As we pointed out, Uganda is a heterogeneous country. Heterogeneous means we are very many subgroups. We are 65 recognized tribes in Uganda, but we have got the other 5 linguistic groups in which we are divided. But since colonialism, we've had other communities in Uganda living in Uganda. We do have, for example, a sizable population of Indians who are now living in Uganda. There are other tribes or communities living in Uganda as refugees or as migrants. So we have some Congolese, Rwandese, Burundians, Somalis now, who have come also to add on to this mix of this melting pot that we call Uganda. And I had already said that we also have different religions, mainly the Christians divided into very many denominations, and then we have Muslims, but we now have the Hindu and their traditional African belief systems here and there. So when you look at Uganda, it is not a homogeneous society in terms of identities. But we are in one country that was created by the British as a hardware, if I can use a computer metaphor. I think the British made Uganda. It is up to us Ugandans to make Ugandans, in the sense that we need those intangible threads that we share in common as culture, as norms, as systems, as constitution, as beliefs, that will make us live together, not necessarily be the same. We cannot be the same. We are different, but being different doesn't mean not living in the same country. So how are we evolving? What is it that we are doing to be socialized as Ugandans? There was the colonial British socialization, which was divide and rule, that did not aim at creating us into one national identity in spite of our different small identities in which we were divided. So it is up to us Ugandans now to make Ugandans. Uganda was created as a hardware by the British, and now our politicians, our social leaders, our cultural leaders, our intellectual leaders, our media leaders should endeavor to create Ugandans. What I mean by this is Ugandan, a people who feel have the same destiny and are supposed to live together in fight of being different ethnic or tribal groups or religious groups or regional groups. We need to realize that that historical accident in which the British created Uganda cannot be undone. It is crying over spilt milk, as the English say, to start singing that you can live without Uganda. So all we need to do is to create those software and make sure that our software is not malfunctioning. We accept each other, We don't stereotype each other. These are animals, these are hyenas, these are ankus, these are uncivilized, these are what? We have already pointed out that genetically speaking, we have a lot that we share in common. So we need to continue building on this heritage of multiculturalism and pluralism in such a manner that it becomes a source of strength rather than a source of weakness. We resist the politicians who sometimes want to capitalize on some of these otherwise former differences or our differences and instrumentalize them and make them tools for dividing us and polarizing us more. We should resist those and continue shaping ourselves in our traditions. Our traditions were assimilationist. Let's take the case of Buganda. Buganda is, in one sense, a tribe, in another one, a nation. A nation in the sense that it has assimilated other tribes. The Bajisu, the Baganda, the Gubala, the Barundi, the Banyarwanda, assimilated. So we should use that formula to be assimilated into a wider society called Uganda, with differences, but at the same time, unity at the same time. As they say, unity in diversity. Of course, these differences, if not handled very carefully, they can be a source of violence, violent conflict. Conflicts in themselves are not bad, by the way, Mr. Moderator. Conflicts in their nature are not necessarily negative. It is only when they become destructive and violent that they are negative. Conflicts, sometimes managers encourage them to bring things which otherwise are swept under the carpet to come on the surface so that they can be seen and swept away. So that should be the direction that we should take. That we can have conflicts, but they should not be destructive, they should not be violent, and we should all accept that we are all human beings with equal status, with equal dignity, and we should not at any one time, as individuals and as community and as government, try to undermine the dignity of other people. When you undermine the dignity of other people, they will be angry and they will create enmity which is unnecessary. Let's respect each other's difference rather than trying to say that we should all be one, which is impossible. But we can conflict at the same time be harmonious in the sense that we resist the tendency to be destructive in our relationships. Let's interact on equal basis using our Ubuntu traditional philosophy, but also using modern norms of human rights and respect for human dignity.
That is very important.
Alina amatu awulire bajjajjaffe bagamba ate era ne Bayibuli bwegamba alina amatu awulire. Nabagamba nti tetusobola kutwala mu bulambuzi bwa Uganda tukulambuze amazike, tukulambuze waterfalls, tukulambuze ebintu ebikola tourism ya Uganda naye nga tutegedde Uganda eno gyevudde. Nabwe kityo ensonga lwaki tukola ki? Tukuleetera ebyafaayo, tukulage Uganda yali efaanana etya nga tennafuuka Uganda. Baani abatuuze ba Uganda byonna Professor Ndebesa abikuviiridde ku ntono. Kkiriza programu ya leero ngiwunzikire wano ate tugenda kuba tukuleetera Uganda yali etya nga abafuzi b'amatwale tebannaba kujja, naddala sayidi eno ey'obukulembeze obw'ennono. Uganda yali efaanana etya obukulembeze obw'ennono ze tuyita kingdoms and chiefdoms, cultural and traditional way of governance systems zaali zitya. Ate oluvannyuma bw'onaatuukira okulambula Uganda mu bino by'oli excited ku maaso ng'otegedde Uganda yo bw'efaanana, sijja kusukkawo wano nenjala okujjukiza nti Maiden International Hotel e Nakasero bebatuteekamu bebamu ku bavujirizi bwa programu eno ate era ne forum wogenda okujja otuula onywa kacyayi ate nga bw'okubaganya ebirowoozo ku nsonga eno ey'ebyobulambuzi. Dr. Ndebesa agenda kubeerako ku pano ezaabo abantu be tugenda okuleeta mu forum eno omubuuza ebibuuzo mu byafaayo ate ng'ebyafaayo byekuusa ku byabulambuzi. Ngezaako nnyo era njagezaako nnyo ebbanga lyonna ngenda okubeera ne Professor Ndebesa obutamutakula kumuyingiza mu byabufuzi kuba is one of the seasoned political analysts. Gwe saagala mutakula muyingiza eyo ffe tuli katuyite eno mu byobulambuzi katuyite mu byafaayo. Roseform Mattress omufaliso ogw'omutindo gw'olina okusulako ogukuwa obulamu ate ne kuyingiza mu nsi y'ebirooto ebirungi. Gukolebwa abarokin form ate era nga bali wali emukono mbalala we wali factory yaabwe emukono mbalala. Mu maduuka gonna agatunda emifaliso Roseform mwali ate ne ku matabi gaabwe agali office agamanyiddwa nga Jinja Road opposite Coffee Development House oba ekitebe kya Coffee Development Authority ekikulu, wali ku Lubaga Road Cruise Plaza bali enajjeera Mbalala Biharwe eri banaffe abali embalala mu Western Region ojja kuba ofuna omufaliso gwa Roseform ebika byonna orthopedic, fit sleep, mmenyeki ndekeki, tape age, gwe buli mufaliso gw'olowoozaako ate balina abakugu togula buguzi mufaliso ne basooka kukubuulira buli mufaliso kyegukola. Victoria University babyanjigiriza bonno bakola ekintu kimu kusomesa n'obanguka. Bagamba genda ng'oli prepared okusoma ofulume ng'oli prepared okukola ekyo ky'osomye. Otegedde bali wano ku Jinja Road ku Victoria bwoli ekitebe kya Victoria University okuliraana Esokona. Maganjo Green Millers bo bakuguka mu byakulya emmere ezimba omubiri ate nga eyamba n'obwongo bwo okubeera vibrant ate nga otegeera bulungi kuba waliwo abantu abali emmere ate munaaye neebonoonera ddala n'abanga tabizuninga. Otegedde lya akawunga k'amaganjo nywa obuugi bw'amaganjo lya jiko eŋŋani eyakolebwa bamaganjo. Nkusiibudde nkomawo n'ekitundu ekyokubiri nga tulaba abafuzi b'amatwale akabasa nga tulaba nga abafuzi b'amatwale tebannaba kuyingira mu Uganda bwe baali wano ate era ne baali bavuddewo akabasa akaaliwo. Tukyali ne Professor Ndebesa munnabyafaayo.
Visit Uganda, Lambla Uganda ekutuusibwako Maiden International Hotel and Casino located at Nakasero, Kampala.
Roseform, a world of beautiful dreams.
Victoria University, come prepared to learn, live prepared to succeed.
Maganjo Grain Millers, feeding nations.